I said that the other gospels go longer on Judas, right? The other gospels go further to attribute motive, and Satan enters and moves Jesus, or moves Judas to betray Jesus. They increase the tradition, and after the New Testament it gets even stronger condemnation of Judas. Peter denies knowing Jesus, and he ends up a star of the show very soon, right? In fact, if we're right about Rome, he's been a star of the show in Rome for a long time, right? So what's the difference? Why does Judas get so, why does Judas end up such a villain and Peter end up getting off in the end? Well, in early Christian history, as persecutions came, one of the theories about this is that as persecution came, the guy who denied, or the woman who denied that they were Christian, isn't a big problem. You miss them in the meetings and everything, right? So Sally Schmo decides she's not going to risk it, and so she denies she was Christian ever, right? Or Ben, the son of John, denies that he was ever Christian. We don't like that to happen. We lose members, we lose relationships, but there's no threat to us of those people doing it. The person who's inside the group and goes and tells what we're doing is a threat. In other words, betrayal is much more of a threat to the Christian community than denial. And that may be a part of what makes the portrayal of Judas get more and more sort of condemning as time goes, right? And here we have another one of those situations where many of you have asked questions along the way about this. We have one of those situations where I am talking as if Mark's just making this up, or Matthew or Luke or John are just putting things in as they wish. All along, as we've said before, we have to reckon with the fact that divine inspiration and human artifice go together, right? That there's a joining of a divine spirit and a human hand, and somehow we get gospels out of it. And you on the screen have various views of how that combination gets done, right? Of how much it is God's hand and how much it is the human hand, and how much space there is for human artifice, or how much of it is just kind of God dictating, or God controlling the pen more, right? In either case, reflecting the community that is receiving the gospel can be a very inspired act. So a portrait of Judas that is fuller and more condemning because of their circumstance under persecution might be a divinely inspired thing. So don't get the impression that I'm saying, yeah, Mark had this idea, John had this idea, and they're just kind of throwing things out. I believe strongly in inspiration, but it's always a task of readers to figure out what does inspiration look like. Does that make sense?